What if I told you the biggest music moguls in the world never saw this coming? That one of hip hop's most controversial stars flipped the music business upside down, and he did it without following the rules. NBA YoungBoy, the Baton Rouge rapper who built a cult-like fan base, didn't just make noise in music, he rewrote the playbook. And the craziest part? He may have outsmarted the entire industry. At first glance, YoungBoy's story doesn't scream business genius. He came up in the rap game young, dropping mixtapes at lightning speed with a reputation built on raw, emotional music. But behind the chaos, there was a pattern. YoungBoy understood something most artists never grasp: consistency equals control. While other rappers took years to release projects, YoungBoy flooded the streets. Mixtapes, singles, visuals, so much that industry executives couldn't ignore him, even if they wanted to. And in today's streaming economy, volume becomes leverage. But that wasn't the whole story. Think about YouTube. Most artists use it as a side hustle, just a place for music videos. YoungBoy treated it like a main stage. For years, he was one of the most streamed artists on the platform, not just in rap, but across all genres. We're talking billions of views year after year, and here's the kicker. He did it without expensive promo campaigns or massive label backing. Fans drove the traffic themselves. He gave them music nonstop, they showed up nonstop, and the revenue kept pouring in. But the next move would change everything. But that wasn't the whole story. Behind the numbers, YoungBoy was also learning the value of independence. Reports suggest he often clashed with labels over creative control and ownership. Instead of playing the traditional game, waiting for executives to push singles or chasing radio hits, he leaned into the direct-to-fan model. Drop a song, let the fans find it, let YouTube push it. No middlemen needed. It was risky, but the results were undeniable. And it set up his biggest negotiations yet. And here's where he really shocked the business world. While labels often try to lock artists into long-term deals, YoungBoy started negotiating on his terms. Rumors swirled that at one point, he turned down multi-million-dollar offers, betting that owning his masters and controlling his catalog would pay off more in the long run. For someone so young, that kind of move was unheard of. But if you understand streaming economics, it makes sense. Every view, every stream, every replay adds up. And if you own the music, those pennies become power, but he didn't stop there. But YoungBoy's genius wasn't just in what he rejected, it was also in what he embraced. He leaned heavily into quantity over polish, which at first seemed reckless. Critics said he was oversaturating the market. But what they missed is that, in the streaming era, oversaturation doesn't exist if your fan base is locked in. The more music he dropped, the more fans stayed glued, and the more platforms boosted his visibility. The algorithm loved him because his fans never stopped clicking. That created a feedback loop. More music, more streams, more power. And then a deeper strategy emerged. Another lever he pulled was catalog power. Old songs don't die in streaming, they stack. Every drop points back to older records. Playlists catch one song, fans binge 10 more. That's compound interest for music. He built depth, not just spikes. So even on quiet weeks, the catalog keeps working. Views roll in at night, in school, at work. The long tail prints. Labels love predictable revenue. He created it himself. And that steady floor gave him leverage for every new move. And then came the deal-making. When you're an artist who can move numbers without the machine has no choice but to work with you. Reports claim YoungBoy secured contracts that reflected his streaming dominance, giving him payouts rivaling megastars, even though he wasn't always in the mainstream spotlight. That's the definition of flipping leverage. He didn't need radio hits to prove his worth. The data spoke louder than anything. But the rollout tactics mattered too. There's also a play most people overlook: timing. He drops when attention is peaking online. Punchy rollouts, no long teasers to drain hype. He reads comments, then pivots fast. If fans latch onto a sound, he doubles down. If they don't, he moves. That agility is product market fit in real time. Fewer meetings, more experiments. The data decides, and the audience feels like they're building it with him. But this wasn't just about money. It was about freedom. By staying unpredictable, YoungBoy built a brand around being uncontrollable. Fans loved him because he wasn't polished, because he wasn't playing by industry rules, and ironically, that rebellion became marketable. He positioned himself as both outsider and superstar, someone the industry couldn't fully control, but couldn't afford to ignore. And that image carried into everything he sold next. And let's not forget the merchandise game. While music streams brought in consistent revenue, YoungBoy tapped into fan loyalty through merch drops and exclusives. When you have one of the most devoted fan bases in rap, even small drops sell out instantly. That's a business move straight out of the playbook of global superstars, except he did it without mainstream endorsement deals or massive corporate partnerships. But the obstacles kept coming, and that only fueled the myth. Of course, the business journey hasn't been without challenges. Some insiders argue that his release strategy leaves money on the table, that he could earn even more if he slowed down and polished albums into big mainstream rollouts. Others say the constant setbacks and controversies limit his branding power. But here's the twist. Those very obstacles only add to his mystique. They reinforce the narrative of YoungBoy versus the world, making fans rally harder. From a business standpoint, the pressure becomes part of the story. And the story drives streams. And the proof is in the stats. Despite setbacks, YoungBoy continues to dominate streaming charts, often outperforming rappers with bigger budgets and more media coverage. His YouTube presence alone outshines entire labels. And with every drop, he reminds the industry that he doesn't need its validation. He already owns the attention. The next question is how far that attention can scale. But maybe the most genius part of all is how he made himself future-proof. By keeping ownership, by building direct fan loyalty, and by mastering platforms like YouTube, YoungBoy has created a model that other artists are now studying. He turned the rules upside down and built a business where the power sits with him, not the labels. That's not luck, that's design, and it keeps paying forward. So what does this mean for the future? If YoungBoy keeps controlling his output, leveraging his fan base, and negotiating from a position of strength, he may become one of the most important business figures in hip-hop, not just for his music, but for how he changed the game. The blueprint is public. The execution is rare. And that's the difference. The industry once tried to box him in, but now it's the opposite. They're chasing him. And that's how a kid from Baton Rouge flipped the script, proving that sometimes the smartest business move is to never play by the rules. The rules changed anyway. He just moved first. But here's the real question. Did NBA YoungBoy really outsmart the industry? Or did he build his own? That's a story still being written. And the next chapter might arrive without warning. And now I want to hear your thoughts. Has NBA YoungBoy set a new standard for independence in rap? Or is he just the exception to the rule? Drop your opinion in the comments and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest names in music. Because trust me, the stories we have coming next will change the way you see the industry forever.